Hello and welcome to the latest edition of the AIIM Growth Partners Podcast. Today, I'm thrilled to be joined by Tariq Kamal, the founder of TechZig Solutions, the technical services company. Tariq, welcome to the show.
Thank you, David, for having me here on the show.
My pleasure. And let's start, as always, with a bit of an introduction to yourself, Tariq. I know you're actually a serial entrepreneur and founder. Let's talk about your background and your journey so far, bring us up to the present, if that's okay.
Surely. So let's start with a little bit of background with respect to education. So I have a double master's, one in mathematics and other one is in operations research. And then I completed my total quality management. And then I joined a company in Delhi, the capital of India. It was a tech company. Apart from tech, they were also a lot into gaming with respect to casino gaming as such. And I think it was one of the first companies to be involved in casino gaming as such in India. So I started my journey from there, learned a lot over there, went over to Aristocrat Technologies, again, a gaming company, then to Samsung. And after Samsung, then I started my own company, TechZig Solutions, back in 2016. TechZig Solutions mainly deals with the technology part of the businesses, be it web applications, mobile applications, cybersecurity. Recently, we have started with AI and stuff as well. So that's one part of the business. We have got another part, which is T7 Gaming, which is completely into casino gaming, because like from the start, I've been involved in that particular area. So that's a little bit about from the professional side. Personally, basically, I love motorbiking. So that's one of the things that I love. And I think as an entrepreneur, we need that free time to remove that clutter from your mind so that you can think, have some time for yourself. So that's, again, one of the important things that I think founders or entrepreneurs have as such. So that's a little bit background about professional as well as personal.
Thank you. And I love that weaving that importance of the downtime. It's something I can be quite guilty of. I mean, I love running or, gymming and training and stuff like that. And sometimes it feels like a bit of a guilty pleasure and something that, unless the business is absolutely soaring, it's something that we can't carve out time of the day or shouldn't be carving out time. But as you mentioned there, it's so important to find that time. And sure enough, those days I train, the days I run and, feed the soul, nourish the soul, like I'm so much more productive and on the ball when it comes to work. So I'm glad we touched on that. And I'm interested in understanding a bit more about your business, because obviously you've been running for a number of years now.
So I would say when we started off, the more focus of the customers were mainly on the product or functionalities part of it. But over a period of time, I think cybersecurity played an important role, wherein with respect to security, a lot of people got an understanding about how security impacts their businesses, especially the e-com business and wherever there is money transactions going on. So a lot of people were involved into looking into those aspects of the business as well. It picked up. And now what we see is like most of the businesses, be it any type of business, irrespective of the domain or industry, AI is something which is the hot cake basically as of now. So everybody is looking at AI. They want to implement AI into their processes. They want to implement AI into whatever things that they can automate as such. So from simple features and functionalities, it evolved a lot more around cybersecurity, and now it has evolved a lot more into AI. So a lot of people are still thinking about how we can integrate ChatGPT. So it's not AI, it's ChatGPT. But I think it's a trend, but maybe down the line, maybe 2-3 months, 6 months down the line, it's going to vanish and people are going to have more understanding of what exactly AI is and what all aspects of the business AI can touch and such.
There are a couple of things I want to kind of come back to, cybersecurity being one of them, but sticking on AI for now, I think it's interesting what you were saying around people, ChatGPT is, people think of AI, or that almost encapsulates AI in its entirety. So when businesses are coming to you and they're wanting to implement AI, how do you, I guess, first of all, get around that knowledge piece?
Right. So a lot of time, like I mentioned, when people come in, they want AI to be integrated, but exactly how or what aspect of the business is going to impact, that's something a lot of people are not aware of. So it's kind of like when we are initially discussing with people like about the business and everything, the first aspect is to understand the business. So understand what the business flow is, what are the processes that are being utilized in that particular business, and what are the aspects that we can touch on. Because a lot of time people don't understand the cost impact that it's going to bring. So because everywhere you will see that, okay, AI is going to replace people, so it might be cost effective and stuff. But exactly, you cannot 100% replace the human touch as such. It has to be there. So, like the going says, AI is not going to replace you, but a person who knows AI is. So people have to understand this particular aspect, that it's not simply like plug and play sort of a thing wherein you can just plug AI and everything will start working. Like I think one of the recent studies about Klarna, one of the payment gateways, they removed a lot of people and replaced everything with AI, and now they are again rehiring people because they know that okay, everything is not going to work just with AI. So understanding the aspect of the business, understanding the business and what all areas AI can impact, wherein you can optimize things, you can automate things. That is a conversation that goes on with most of the businesses when we are into this, you can say, exploratory phase with the businesses for new projects.
I think it's so interesting when we look at AI and, speak to yourself and speak to a lot of leaders out there. And it seems like we're kind of in this hype cycle or phase at the moment where it's almost like AI is like bumper stickers, these unnecessary features or things you add to the car. Don't make it go faster. Don't really add to the performance. They're just nice features to have. Whereas really businesses, if you strip it back, the fundamentals of business haven't changed. How is this going to help me ship faster? How is it going to help me reach more customers? What bottleneck in the business, whether it's operational sales or whatever else, what's it going to actually help me solve? It seems like a lot of people at the moment are getting distracted by all these AI tools and the capabilities out there. But actually, these might not be moving the business forward. Quite a lot of people I speak to, it's, they'll plug in a tool or their customers will plug in a tool that will streamline or boost efficiency in one area, but create a bottleneck elsewhere. Misunderstandings you encounter when you're working with customers around the kind of capabilities of AI and what it can do.
I think one of the major things is with respect to automation and basically speed, wherein people are looking at like the entire thing which is being done manually, it can be replaced completely with AI, and the reduction in cost as such, like impact on the business with respect to timelines as well as cost. These two things are what people are looking at. But again, like I said, it has to be looked holistically, wherein what all aspects it can impact. It cannot impact each and everything for the business. Again, is something I think it's a misinformation sort of a thing wherein people are, because you will see a lot of posts on LinkedIn or Instagram or stuff wherein people are showcasing AI as something which can replace, automate each and everything. But again, even if you look at from the coding perspective, like if we are developing something, there are AI agents that we are also utilizing, but it cannot replace completely the developer as such. We are using like AI agents with respect to maybe getting help with maybe reviewing the code at times, maybe writing a piece of the functionality as such. But if you think that we can replace AI and we can just put in prompt and get a complete application created within a day, that's something that's as of now, it's not going to happen as such. So that is something that people need to understand. It automates, it helps, it can act as your, you can say, as a partner, someone who can hold your hand and work along with you, but it's not something that's going to replace each and everything.
What do you think is the most impactful? And I don't know if this is a sort of the $1 million question, but where are you finding with the businesses you're working are the highest leverage activities you can derive real value for businesses?
So I think there are two parts, 2 or 3 areas where we see a lot of impact with respect to AI. One for sure is the content part. So a lot of content can be generated if you're using the right prompts and everything. A lot of content can be generated. Second part is with respect to creating MVPs. So when you're looking at launching a particular product, getting feedbacks. So maybe if maybe 2 years back you were taking maybe say 2 or 3 months to create an MVP, that time duration can come down drastically, maybe to few weeks, 2 3 weeks as such. So, but again, this comes with the caveat that you have to have very good knowledge of how to use different tools that are available in the market, using ChatGPT, Claude, Perplexity. So these are the different tools that you have to use to, and prompt engineering is one of the major things that you have to know. So if you know these things, I think MVP creation, getting feedbacks and getting into the market, getting those feedbacks early and in a very short duration, I think that's one of the major things that AI has impacted. So content, MVP creation, as well as with respect to from development perspective, if we talk about the kind of code or the reviews and everything, it can help you in enhancing those things, getting those things in a much more better way and handling those defects and issues at a much more earlier phase of development. So these 3 things I think are the ones that AI has impacted a lot as of now.
And what are the benefits that you find of working with your customers being able to reduce that time to MVP? What's the, I guess,
Yeah, so I will give an example with respect to the benefit that we had and the customer had. We had this product that the customer had an idea about having a marketplace for renting out motorbikes as such. So it's a UAE based customer who is working for the Indian market. Now, while we were discussing this thing, and even the project had not started as such from our end, we were still in the discussion phase, exploring everything. We utilized AI in creating sort of a pre-MVP sort of a thing. So it had those login registrations, some of the features and functionalities that the client was discussing and we were discussing, and we utilized it and created a pro MVP or a prototype even while we were in the discussion, and then present it to the customer. So from business perspective, it gives a high credibility to you, wherein you can showcase, okay, what you were thinking, we've already got a prototype for it. Okay. And from the business perspective, if you look at it from that person's perspective, he gets an idea about, okay, what I was thinking, I can see it now. Because a lot of times you will see designing phase and then the prototype and everything takes a lot of time. And then there are a lot of reworks and everything goes on. It takes a lot of time as such. But if you can, like maybe in a week's time, if you can present a prototype to the customer with it, it's completely unpolished, I would say, but it still gives a very good idea to the business with respect to what they are looking at and to us as service provider as to what the customer wants. So that's a great benefit for both the business.
so I guess it demonstrates your understanding of the customer's problems and what they're wanting, and it creates, if nothing more, it's that whiteboard session of here's a template of what this could look like. Now this isn't the finished article. Let's test and tweak and kind of iterate some bits here. But you're not starting with an entirely blank canvas. It's a prototype you can kind of mold and change.
That's good, yeah.
So I was interested, coming back to one of the things you mentioned earlier, and I think it ties into kind of calculating ROI. Because there's a lot of misinformation out there on the kind of replacement versus enhancing and kind of shifting focus, given the level of uncertainty around this and content creation and all these other capabilities that people might hire for, how do you go about calculating ROI, and how big a focus is that for you when dealing with customers?
Yeah, I think it's a major thing. Like whenever you go to a particular customer, like you are not the only vendor or only partner who is going after a particular customer as such. Okay. So cost factor is something, and timeline is something that's going to impact whether you're going to get that particular project or not. Now, if we have got people in the team who have got this AI capability, wherein, like I mentioned, if you can create a prototype, even though we are in discussion, and suppose two people are approaching the same client. One is basically discussing what is required and stuff, and there are like long documents that are being prepared, whereas the other person brings brings to the conversation a prototype, basically. So just imagine who the customer would go with. At the initial phase itself, you have basically created a niche for yourself, basically in front of the customer. Okay, so knowing AI and utilizing it in your day-to-day work that you are doing, basically what it does, it's a huge ROI. Like the sales cycle reduces, so the amount of cost that was being spent in the sales cycle, that reduces. Okay, so the first stage from where you start getting the ROI of utilizing AI, it starts right from the sales cycle itself. Now the timeline reduces. You can charge the customer the same that you were going to charge him earlier, but you can charge him same but within a lesser timeline. So your profitability again goes up. Maybe you are utilizing, you can say one and a half developers earlier or 2 developers earlier. Now you can maybe utilize 1.5 developers as such in terms of the effort being spent. So again, that impacts the ROI. So utilization of AI into activities as with respect to development or providing service, the ROI increases a lot, as profitability increases a lot. And then if you move this particular thing even to the customer side, if you're automating things like maybe content creation, if it's suppose a company who is writing maybe a lot of content as such, they've got maybe 2 content writers. If you can replace those 2 content writers with maybe a solution where they get maybe a new content every day based on certain keywords or whatever their niche is, so that reduces their cost as well. So again, the ROI with respect to what they're spending on AI automation tools versus what they would have spent on maybe 2 or 3 content writers, maybe a designer, maybe someone who is going to handle your social media accounts and everything. So all this can be automated. You put in particular keywords, it creates content for maybe LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, it posts it onto those social platforms. So the entire process gets automated as such. So again, a huge saving and with respect to the customer for whom you have worked as such.
Because I think it's such an interesting one that all businesses or most businesses want to embark on this AI transformational journey. Some want to dip their toe in, some want a full transformation project. But, it always seems so important to tie it back to ROI. And one of the things from my experience that I find like quite difficult sometimes is when it's a case of, don't worry, we're not trying to replace all of your staff. But at the same time, the ROI calculation is a bit of a case of like, actually, you're spending X amount on these employees. We can automate a lot of that. And it's like, we're trying not to say we're trying to, automate a lot and replace your workforce. But equally, somewhere in the equation, we need to account for our costs and the costs we're saving. And okay, well, if we're not getting rid of the people, where does that money go? We're still spending that. And it's like, so it's, am I allowing you to ship quicker, sell more, bring in more clients? What is it? Because ultimately, I don't want to be that kind of person that's displacing everyone's job. But equally, you need to make the ROI calculation compelling enough that businesses are going to, obviously want to invest in you. So I find that's an interesting one that I'm finding. But how do you go about, how's the best way to kind of go about it? And it's different for different businesses. I guess their outcomes are a bit different, but that's a tough one I find to navigate.
And I think what you mentioned is right with respect to like, it's not only about replacing, but the amount of job that you can do. Like maybe a single person who was doing maybe X amount of work, now you can do X plus Y amount of work with automation and everything. So again, I said like, you cannot like, even if you're creating content, you need a person who is intelligent enough to basically put in what prompts has to go. What are the keywords that have to go? So you cannot replace that particular person altogether. But yeah, maybe he was taking a complete day to write a content. Now he can maybe write 3 contents in a single day using AI. So that's where like, plus maybe the shipment, like you mentioned, like something that you are going to develop and ship maybe in a week's time with a single resource. Now you can ship it in maybe 3 days instead of 6 days. You can ship it in 3 days. So that's where I think that impacts the ROI as such.
Another thing we have not kind of touched on, but I think is interesting to bring up is you're currently operating across multiple different countries and different continents even. What are from a macro perspective, what are the trends you're seeing and what are the industries that you're finding are kind of most, ready or conversely reluctant to adopt AI?
I won't say I'm not saying reluctance as such, but yeah, it depends on business to business. Like if you look at I think mid and larger size businesses, they are adopting to AI much more faster as compared to the smaller size businesses. Even a lot of colleagues of mine who are working in different companies, they have got these mandates wherein the percentage of code as such has to be like this much percentage of code has to be from Copilot as such. So those are like bigger companies who can afford a lot of things with respect to like investing a lot of money into AI and stuff. So I wouldn't say it's reluctance, but it's with respect to again knowledge as well as the amount of investment that you have as a company to implement. So if you look at healthcare, even agriculture, retail, e-commerce, edtech, everywhere like AI has started to be implemented. But again, it depends a lot about the size of the company, the amount of investment that you can make. So that's one thing that has to be seen as such. And I would say a very funny thing. Like in India, we have got a lot of people who have got a great knowledge about AI and stuff as such. But most of those knowledge is being implemented for companies in US or Europe or another region. So a lot of companies in India, even though we have got a huge knowledge base with respect to people and stuff with respect to AI implementation in India as such is much at a lower rate as compared to other countries. And again, the reason is again the same. Like it's with respect to the investment and how much you want to spend in implementing AI.
Are we at a point now where actually, you don't have to be a Google, a Netflix, a whatever massive enterprise out there to invest in AI? Because from what, I'm seeing out there, and maybe it's fake news, I don't know, but it seems like it's cheaper and cheaper for businesses to get started on their AI transformation. What are you finding?
I think that's right. I think that's absolutely right. But again, I would say the knowledge gap is there. So whenever a new technology or anything comes, it's mainly about the knowledge. So the companies or people who are basically have looked into AI in much more depth with respect to being it cost or like how it's going to impact things, they are more prone to accepting it as such as compared to people who haven't dived into it. So no doubt with coming off like earlier it was ChatGPT, then DeepSeek came, and then there are other tools as well. And if you compare the cost with respect to with respect to the ROI part of it, the cost of developing or working something or implementing something with use of AI as compared to a human resource is much more cheaper as such and much more faster. But again, it's a gap of knowledge with respect to, do you want to do it manually or do you want to do it via AI? And it depends on mindset as well. Like I mentioned, in India, we have got a huge resource database as such. We have got a huge number of people. So instead of automating everything, is it much more cheaper to get people to get that work done, or does it become cheaper with respect to implementing automation? So it's the mindset and the knowledge that's there. But for sure, the costing has come down a lot with respect to
It's interesting. When I set up the business, I know I had a lot of like kind of mentors or people I spoke to like yourself, and they were saying you can be cheap, you can be fast, or you can be high quality. You can be two of the three, but you certainly can't be all three. And I think it's interesting when I look at AI and compared with, say, for example, it's with lead generation, say it's with process optimization, areas in which I kind of help businesses. It's now with AI, you're like, actually, I am cheaper than a full-time employee or having a team of full-time employees. So it's cheaper. It is faster because there's no ramp time as well.
Right.
So it's faster, cheaper, but the quality is there as well. Would you say, what are your thoughts on that? Because in my mind, AI's sort of broken that lock of you can only have two out of the three. It seems now that actually you can have high quality at the speed and at the price that works for businesses. What are your thoughts on that?
I think I completely agree with that. I would say the size of the business in terms of resources, you can have a very small team. Maybe you can start single-handedly. If you're good at it, you can handle single-handedly. So it's not about having big enterprises or having a very big team to achieve the level of revenue or level of business that you see in terms of financial thing. You can start small, have a very small team of capable people, and get to a level where maybe a team of where a team of 50 people was working maybe 3 years back. You can do the same amount of work, have a same size of company in terms of revenue and with only maybe 4 or 5 people as such. So it surely has made the company sizes smaller and leaner as compared to what we had earlier.
Mm, mm. Yeah, interesting. It's good to hear that. I'm glad to hear that you sort of agree, because it's something I'm kind of grappling with. That it's like, do I inflate my prices? Do I do this? Do I do that? Because I can't be all three of the three. I've got to be two. So either I'm pricing myself too low, or maybe I've got to slow down. So I think that's really interesting. You mentioned earlier on the call in terms of some of the trends you've noticed in the business, where you're seeing appetite and demands from the clients you work with shifting towards cybersecurity, machine learning, and automations and stuff like that. Focusing on cybersecurity for a minute, I know in the UK we've had a lot of quite high-profile cybersecurity attacks, and you see a lot of the big retail stores and chains have been hit. Talk me through, when you noticed this sort of trend that, businesses were more and more worried about cybersecurity, and talk me through, how and where you help businesses.
So earlier, like I mentioned, people were not too much aware about cybersecurity, and whenever they were developing something, be it their internal team or an external team, it was an assumed thing. Okay, something is developed, it's secure, so it doesn't require testing. It doesn't require testing with respect to functionality was done, but not with respect to maybe SQL attacks or SQL injection attacks or vulnerability testing and all this stuff. Load testing was done, functionality testing was done, but not cyber testing as such from security perspective. But I think because a lot of attacks on a lot of bigger companies and if I'm not wrong, earlier banks and news websites were hacked and a lot of things happened. So that created basically a sort of a trend where people started looking at cybersecurity as a separate service altogether. So a lot of times we have got a team, and a lot of times things that we have not developed, people come for cybersecurity services as such. Or even when we are developing anything, there is a point wherein even in the proposal and everything, things are written with respect to cybersecurity. So it has to be secured and stuff. A lot of people know the terminology as well. VPT, like vulnerability and penetration testing and stuff. So people are much more aware now as compared to what they were a few years back. With respect to even when we are developing applications as such, be it web or mobile applications, where there are like APIs or third-party integrations are being done. So we make it a point during our initial discussion as well to basically impart that kind of a knowledge to our customers that this is something that is required. So that is something that we are going to ask you to pay, because that is something that we are going to invest some effort on as such if you are developing an application. And what I've seen a trend is like businesses who are serious about like growing. We work with a lot of businesses who are like starting up as such, but businesses who are like quite serious about growing and they know that okay, they're going to take this business to a particular level. So they are quite interested in getting those things implemented. But still, there are small businesses like small e-commerce companies who are maybe catering to a small city or something. They still don't see it as a threat. It is a threat once it comes, something happens, then it becomes a threat as such. But initially, as a small business, they don't see it. They don't want to invest on it. Still, we see this trend as such.
So do you carry out testing then on everything you kind of develop, security testing?
Right, we do.
And in terms of the other kind of like suite or selection of kind of cybersecurity services, how do you talked about kind of third party vulnerability management, for example. Do you provide those services? Do you kind of work with partners? How do you manage that?
Yeah, so we have got partners as well, because having those entire thing as a service is a little difficult. So we have got external partners, such like consultants as well, who basically help us when we are looking into these projects and what are the different aspects. Because from business to business, the aspects and basically the criticality of the thing changes. So it depends on what type of business or what type of project is there. Based on that, this particular service we provide.
How are you kind of standing out and differentiating yourself and still, attracting people for these cybersecurity services?
So it's mainly with respect to like referral sort of a thing. So most of the companies that we work with are like small or mid-sized companies as such. So generally mid-sized companies they don't go to these very huge companies. I said they're looking for companies that are our size who can basically are a good match for them with respect to implementation of security as well as with respect to the investment that they want to make. So that is something where we come into the picture. For sure, we cannot compete with like very big companies as such out there in the market, but that's where we play in the mid-sized companies and the referrals or the past projects clients that we have worked with.
I find it really interesting looking at that. I know you said kind of medium businesses, but the SMB market, you look at how it's been so neglected that yes, you've seen the kind of the CrowdStrikes, the Wizzes, the Cyeras of the world that are doing phenomenally well and gobbling up anyone that kind of comes along. I had a great soundbite from one of my guests I had on the podcast previously. It was saying the SaaS model is broken, it's dead, it's whatever. And, he was then going in and saying that like a lot of, businesses and particularly the SMBs might buy a tool from CrowdStrike, for example, might have 150 different features for which they use 5. And the cost benefit, doesn't add up for these SMBs. So there needs to be much more white glove treatment and bespoke solutioning for these smaller businesses. And looking ahead then, so you're already operating across, multiple countries, multiple continents even, operating various different services as well. You spoke about the kind of the rise in cybersecurity, machine learning and automation solutions. Looking ahead, what are the kind of the main trends in the areas that you're focusing on as a business, areas that you're looking to expand into, whether it's geographically or in terms of particular industries?
I think AI is for sure one thing that we are looking to grow a lot more as such. I wouldn't say we are an 100% expert. A lot of things are coming out each and every day. So as a company, as a team, we have to keep on learning and adding everything to our arsenal as such. That AI is one thing that for sure is going to going the way that we surely are going to adopt new things as such. So that's one trend for sure. Another thing that I see a lot with respect to Indian subcontinent as well as with respect to, I would say, UAE part of region is with respect to games as such. So gaming again is one thing that's picking up in those regions a lot, even in India. So it has grown to a very huge market and still growing. So these two trends are something that we are looking at. One is for sure AI, another one is the gaming part.
Interesting. Do you kind of expect or anticipate that with all these kind of trends and this drive towards kind of AI and automation and some of the difficulty and the challenges in some more regulated environments, is this going to create kind of more pockets of opportunity?
Yeah, I think it will, because I think just a few days back I was reading about this. Like, I think Disney, they had filed a lawsuit against, I think, Midjourney for the Shrek image, the Shrek cartoon. So they have filed a lawsuit against it. So I think this is something, with passing time with respect to content or code or anything of that sort, this is something that is going to be regulated a lot. So as of now, we are using it like freely. Anybody is doing anything with respect to AI. But I think over a period of time, things are going to get regulated. Again, the copyright part of it, apart from what we are looking at copyright as of now, this will change a lot with respect to when AI is being utilized in different domains as such. So for sure, in the regulated markets, this is something that's going to come up. Well, I would say three sectors: finance, education, and healthcare. These are three sectors which I think they're never going to go down as such. There would always be an increment in these three sectors, be it with respect to technology, be it with respect to the number of people who are going to get involved, the type of businesses and everything. It's always going to grow as such. So healthcare, finance, and education, I think these are three sectors that as a business as such is always something that we are looking at. A lot of things that we were just imagining, that can it be done or can it not be done? And it for sure is going to grow a lot with respect to the implementation of AI.
And what do you think are the main kind of concerns? We've obviously talked about, we've been on one side of the fence for this sort of conversation. We're incredibly bullish on AI. We did speak at one point, though, about the importance of maintaining that human in the loop when it comes to coding. For example, we can't, surrender complete control to sort of AI and have no one sense checking or fact checking the outputs. What do you think are some of the biggest kind of concerns when implementing sort of AI?
So I think one of the things that a lot of people who are using AI tend to forget is a lot of things that they are writing. Like if it's not a blog sort of a thing, a lot of things, a lot of codes, a lot of information that you're putting on these AI tools as such, they are open. So a lot of codes that you are putting in, a lot of things that you're asking stuff or putting in, a lot of things which might be confidential for your organization. But just because you're using AI and you think everything is hidden and stuff, it's not hidden. So that is something, data privacy and confidentiality of what you're doing. I think that is something that companies have to take care of with respect to their employees, because maybe a set of employees, they know, okay, this is how it has to be done. But there are a lot of people in the organization who might not be knowing and doing these things unknowingly as such. So that understanding, that training has to be imparted to, I think, everyone in the organization, at how to use your data, how to not put on confidential things onto AI and stuff.
Talk to me and talk to the listeners about, you've navigated various sort of changes in the tech space. There are always ebbs and flows, different themes and trends that you're kind of exploring. And I think from the geographies you operate, there's going to be ebbs and flows there. What are some of the greatest lessons you've learned as an entrepreneur in kind of building and growing these businesses?
I think I would say, like, there are two things that every business as such has to take care of. One is with respect to having a good team. So having a good team is very important. Like, your business is as good as the team that you have, basically. Okay. And another thing is with respect to team, we should always look at a team which is better than you as such. Okay. If I know, say again, if I know X, and if I hire people who are like X minus one, so it's never going to grow as such. You always have to hire people who are like X plus Y, X plus Z. So that's one thing that you have to take care of in building a team. That's one thing. Another part is with respect to building relationships with your clients, people in the industry. Like, even if you should not look at it from a short-term perspective, that okay, if we are meeting somebody, we are going to get projects from that particular person. You have to build relationships with people and with your clients. With your clients, you have to build long-term relationships. You have to act as a tech company, I would say, you have to act as their tech partners, not as their tech vendors as such. So that's an important thing that we learn. Initially, it was for sure. When we started, we also were looking at projects like, okay, let's get projects. But over a period of time, we understood like you get a project, you finish it, and you say goodbye to your customer. That's not something that's going to work in the long term. So if you've got a customer, you have to build relationships so that they are there. You get referrals from them, you get good word of mouth from them. So that's something that's required as such from your customers as such. So building a relationship, having a good team, I think these are the two things that's required. Another thing which plays an important role for the business to grow is to identify your niche. So as a business, maybe initially you cannot, a lot of business identify their niche initially, but a lot of businesses, they take some time to identify what's their niche as such, and they build capabilities, and then they can identify and work on a particular niche as such. So I think these three things, team, building relationship, and having a niche for your businesses. I think these three things are something that we learned over a period of time running different businesses.
I love that. And I'm interested, your team's in India. A lot of your clients aren't in India. So how do you go about building those trusting, long-standing relationships that you say are so important?
So basically, it's with respect to the utilization of social media is one thing. Our past customer testimonials is another thing. And the third is attending conferences. So there are a lot of conferences that we go to. So these are the three things wherein we connect with people, we try to build relationship with them, we showcase our past work. So initially, like when you start initially, it's very difficult because you don't have any past work, you don't have anything to showcase as such. But over a period of time, if you're doing good work, you get those references, you get those testimonials and stuff that you can utilize to showcase like what you are as a business to your new customers or new people.
I think that's interesting and also insightful for me because, it's so easy to think a lot of my kind of clients and businesses I'm speaking to are in the UAE and are in America as well. And it would be sort of fantastic if I could sort of fly out, maybe have a private jet at my disposal one day, maybe. We're going out and seeing people. I know there's nothing that, can replace seeing the white of somebody's eyes, seeing them face to face, sharing a drink, sharing a coffee, going for a walk, whatever it is. But we can't always do that. And I think in the age and the world in which remote working is so common, often as well, actually trying to motivate people to meet up face to face. I think they get joy out of it, but it's not always possible. So it's interesting to hear how you've developed and you've prioritized that relationship building piece whilst having a team that isn't necessarily in the same country as your clients.
And even with the conference and everything, it's like a huge investment as such. Conferences, traveling, conferences, tickets, they don't come cheap as such. So it's a huge investment with respect to just building relationships. So you have to have different channels as such to approach new people. And I think LinkedIn is one of the major platforms that I think most of the people are using as such to basically connect to people. Apart from conferences, there have to be other channels that you to utilize.
And I was going to ask that actually. So in terms of the channels, because you are using a kind of multi-channel approach, LinkedIn's always been the kind of gold standard for like business networking and, reaching out to professional people. Are you still finding that LinkedIn is the best channel for engaging and reaching out to these people and building relationships?
So there are two parts to LinkedIn, how we used it initially and how we use it now. So initially it was using LinkedIn for sales basically. So you connect with a person, send him a sales message. So that's how I think most of the people used LinkedIn as such, because of which I would say the importance or the legitimacy dropped a little bit. But people over a period of time, like we have understood that LinkedIn is not for completely selling, it's for building relationship as such. So you connect with a person, you understand what they are doing, get some insights from what the business is doing, what the industry is all about, talk to them, build a relationship. And maybe over a period of 6 months, 1 year, 2 years, if they see that, okay, you are someone they trust based on your conversations, maybe your posts, what you write on LinkedIn, how you are communicating with them and with other businesses, that relationship builds basically over a period of time. And then that can convert into maybe a project or something of that sort. But it has to be utilized in a way wherein you're utilizing it for building a relationship, not just for going and pitching for a project or a product as such.
So it sounds like you really and your business prioritizes those long-term strategic and value-driven relationships over those short-term transactional kind of project focused. Is that right? Is that a fair assessment?
That's right. Because like I said, when we started, we surely were looking at those short-term things because it was a start. We were quite new as such. So it was a learning for us that we saw over a period of time that, okay, this is not the way to approach as such a business to grow. So it has to be built on something different. it was a learning curve was there wherein we learned how things have to be done, have to be run as a business. So, that was a learning that we gained over a period of time.
Well, I appreciate you sharing your learnings with me and the listeners. Look, Tariq, it's been an absolute pleasure and a joy having you on the podcast, learning about you, your businesses, and the kind of the lessons you've learned, some of the trends and challenges you're seeing in the market, and some of the kind of the themes you're paying attention to. Were there any sort of final thoughts or things you wanted to kind of leave the listeners with?
No, I think with respect to running a business, I think one of the important things, like I mentioned, is having good relationship, having a long-term relationship. Don't think of your customers as a one-time thing. It has to be something wherein you act as their tech partners if you're a technology company, or anything. Act as a partner as such with them, not just a vendor. And that's going to basically take you a long way with anyone that you work with.
Yeah. Amazing. I love that. We'll leave it there. I think that's a great note to end on. But look, thank you so much again, Tariq. I really appreciate your time and your contribution and joining me on the podcast today.
Thanks a lot, David, for having me on the podcast. It was lovely talking to you.